You're listening to the Travelers Podcast, a podcast for the over 30s who like to travel. We're your hosts, Leanne and Al Elliott, and we're a husband and wife team who've been full-time travelers since 2017. You can follow our adventures, see our honest reviews, and get links to everything mentioned in this podcast at travelers.com. Okay, welcome to the Travelers Podcast. We are on location yet again. We're here in the fabulous Deco restaurant in the centre of Vilnius. Leanne and I came here on one Friday and we had one of the, well, I think the best meal we've had in Vilnius so far in the last 4 months. It was absolutely unbelievable. And then we had a couple of drinks and then we had a couple more actually. We won't go into that. And we chatted to David and Sam and Olga, who are the owners here. And they were got some great stories, really, really interesting. So I said, let's come back, let's set up and let's do a little mini podcast. So in a second, I'm going to introduce these guys, but just to let you know, we are in the restaurant at the moment, and it's a working restaurant, so you might hear some things from the kitchen, you might have some people walking past, there might be some people coming in, so forgive that. We'll try and keep down the background noise down to minimum, but obviously that's going to be that. So, without further ado, we've got Sam and David. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. David, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little potted history of David?
Okay. New York native. Spent some years in America, some in the Middle East, Europe. Adopted Vilnius as home about 6 years ago. And we've been operating this restaurant for the last 4 years or so. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, our first restaurant, but hopefully not the last.
Brilliant. Well, we'll definitely talk more about that in a second. So, Sam, can you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your history? You look surprised. You knew this was coming.
Well, born really long time ago in Vilnius. Was lucky to live in 72. Made a full circle and came back 42 years later.
Wow.
In the middle it was Israel, Jordan, most of my life in New York, and somehow rolled back to Lithuania, which never regretted for a single day.
Let me ask you then, so did you ever think you'd come back to Vilnius?
Never thought.
Never?
No, didn't cross my mind.
So at what point did it cross your mind? Did you start thinking you might want to come back?
Well, we came back, we came to visit for a weekend initially, and then 2 weeks later came back as a family for summer vacation. Stayed the whole summer and then decided to just move.
Brilliant.
Wanted to move to Europe, and Lithuania is just as good as it gets.
And so where you were currently, sorry, let me start that again. Where were you before you came back to Lithuania? So you were on holiday from what country were you living in?
Well, the US. We moved from New York.
So you're in New York, you came on holiday to Vilnius? Was it Vilnius you came?
Excuse me?
Was it Vilnius you came to?
Vilnius, yeah.
Vilnius,
Yeah.
No, you wanted to get away from Poland, so
That was
they were on a trip.
Business trip.
Yeah, they were on a business trip to Poland, and then they had 2 free days in the car. So they said, "Let's get the hell out of here." What's the closest place? Vilnius.
Brilliant.
Seriously.
Yeah?
Yeah. Exactly 6 years ago. It was a beautiful May.
Yeah.
Beginning of May, everything was blooming, and I don't know. It was just a never-ending pleasure, and we just decided, let's move. No, let's stay this summer and then eventually.
I think it's funny because when we arrived, it was February, and so it was cold, although not as cold as it's supposed to be. Last time.
Hardly had a winter this year.
Yeah, so it was a bit wet and a bit grey, and we didn't really appreciate how beautiful Vilnius was till now, until the spring, and it's all green.
That was an extremely cold May. Very unusual. Usually May, everything is blooming. It's nice. Summer just started a couple of days ago. Just kind of late. I mean, it's a month later than usual.
Yeah, but we're currently melting as a result of it. Have not gotten prepared for it yet.
I checked this morning, and we have higher humidity than our favourite island in Thailand. Higher humidity today in Vilnius, and it's also sunnier. It's about 29 here and 28 in Koh Chang, one of our
Seriously, try Dubai or Tel Aviv, you'll be surprised.
Really?
You'll feel dried.
Really?
Yeah, Dubai takes you 20 minutes to need to change the suit.
We've only been to the airport. We've never actually been into the.
No, that's
Dubai.
Not missing much, I would say.
So, moving on from Dubai, let's talk about your restaurant. So, you've given us a little bit of a history there, David. But if someone didn't know anything about your restaurant, how would you describe it?
The first and foremost star of our establishment is the products. We are sourcing on a fanatically only local level everything that we can source from a local and ecological supplier. We do. It's not just the food, but it's everything. It's the coffee, it's the bar selection, the paint on the walls even. It's all certified ecological because, it's the only sustainable way that we know. Many places right now are fixated on this hashtag support local, but they've been really preaching this mantra since the beginning of the COVID-19 epidemic. We've been doing it for 4 years. We were supporting local before it was cool.
We've been doing it all our lives.
Yeah, I'm almost 24 years old, and for the entire duration of my life, we have been an ecological family. No matter where we were living, in New York City, then in Paris, and even Jordan, in the Middle East, we were able to be an organic family there. In Jordan, it was a little bit more difficult, but still possible at that time. And basically the driving concept of us opening this place was the fact that you're in Lithuania, where you have access to amazing seasonable produce, not just vegetables and beetroots, but amazing livestock here, amazing spices even. You just need to have the drive to source it, because I've been working in kitchens for quite some time, and what surprised me the most was, out of the three countries where I was working in the kitchens, New York, Israel, and Lithuania, the produce that I was receiving in deliveries was the worst in Lithuania, because many places are buying from conglomerates, corporate suppliers, who really care more about the price than the quality. Not trying to badmouth any of our colleagues in town, because actually in the last 4 years since Deco has been open, I'm noticing a lot more restaurants and kitchens jumping onto the sourcing local and even ecological trend, which I'm very happy to hear, because it's good. It's not just good for what the end result on the plate, but it's also supporting local economy, and at the end of the day, the farmers who are just trying to get by.
We're actually gladly sharing suppliers.
You're actually what, sorry?
Sharing suppliers with our colleagues. I mean, whoever comes in from restaurants around us, it's collegial. We know a lot of people, and they're asking, "Oh, this is good, where do you get it?" So we share it.
That's cool.
We just happy to preach the gospel and provide local employment, and just improve the overall quality of whatever is served around us. So,
let me ask you then. So, how do you actually decide who your supplier is? Do you go and visit them?
Oh God, it's research. We actually rarely buy anything without knowing exactly where it comes from. We take the time, we meet the people, we visit the farm, we see where it grows, how it grows, and then we buy it. And we have long-term relationship. I can show you later the organic vegetables we got today. So we're working with the same supplier all year round for basically from the beginning. And we have a milk lady with dairy supplier. Same, local, ecological, and we work with them over 3 years. Our livestock, local Lithuanian duck, organically raised Black Angus.
Yes, Black
Steaks.
Angus from either Ukmergė or closer to Klaipėda.
And same supplier of Aubrac, which is a French breed that is organically grown about, I think about 100 kilometers from Vilnius. Same long-term relationship. We know the people, we know the family, we visit them frequently. Amazing quality. They also supply us with venison, Lithuanian breed Daniel. And we know the people even before we opened the restaurant because that's how we source our home supplies. And so, and everyone else is the same. We for instance, bar supplies, vodka. There is we have 2 brands of Lithuanian vodka and we buy nothing else. And this is Lithuanian organic vodka, small batch and so on, and Pakruojo Dvaras.
Yeah, Pakruojo Dvaras, the owner of a very good whiskey bar here, King and Mouse, Šarūnas Karalis, found a 15th century distillery at a manor near the city of Panevėžys. Basically updated and fixed the premises of the distillery. Has his own farm in the manor area and sources from local farmers as well. Honey and thyme, cherries even when they're in season. And is making Lithuanian craft spirits that are right now winning awards for all over Europe and the United States, even though it's very small batch stuff. And while he's not certified organic, we just 2 weeks ago were at the distillery in the manor. We went through the entire farm. They're doing things properly because, you know, it's when you have all these labelings, it's difficult to be able to say what's organic and what's not because the certification is at times prohibitively expensive. So that's why it's very important for you to be able to go to the suppliers and just go through because even if I can't say it's certified organic, if I go to the farm and I see how they're doing it, I know it's ecological.
Brilliant. So let me just switch gears for a second. I want to ask you about your food because we only managed to fit, I think, 3 or 4 dishes in. What's nice about when you come into this restaurant is the menu is relatively small, and you know, first of all, you know instinctively everything's going to be fresh.
Yeah.
But also, the lady who took our order was explaining that everything changes almost daily.
Yes.
Because you just look and see what you can, you know, what's good that day, and
Yeah, I mean, for example, right now we are getting massive amounts of purple, white, and green asparagus because we're going to be experiencing the asparagus season until the end of the month of June.
Right.
So that then we incorporate these different types of asparaguses into almost every dish because you can have chopped raw asparagus in the green salad as a nice garnish. You can have grilled as a side for a steak. Or we do our soup of the day, you know, 2 different types of asparagus soup mixed together. And that's how we work year round. I mean, the menu we change, you know, from fall to winter, spring to summer. But those are major dish changes. But apart from that, I mean, the sides that you'll get in the month of June, in the first week as opposed to the last week, it's going to be completely different.
Came back from organic market today, so I have kohlrabi that we didn't have a week ago. We don't have potatoes, so we have to basically work with what we have on a daily basis.
Yeah, you got to think on your feet almost every single day, which a lot of restaurants are doing, and I'm very happy about that.
it was great. So let me ask you, because as I say, we only managed to try, I think, 4, although we did stuff ourselves, but we managed to try 4 4 dishes. Out of all the dishes that you have served or do serve, do you two have any favourites? Anything that you just could eat over and over?
Boy, that's a difficult one. You know, I'm not gonna lie. You know, if after 4 years of owning a fine dining establishment, sometimes at the end of the day you just really want something simple. So when I have a shift in the kitchen, I'll buy good quality Italian tuna, make a tuna salad, and just do a New York deli style tuna fish sandwich because sometimes you just want something simple.
It does sound good.
But from our menu items, I don't know. The steaks are pretty amazing.
Lamb.
Lamb.
Got quail this week.
Oh, yes.
No, that's amazing.
Now we have
Lithuanian.
brandy and honey mustard marinated quail. Very delicate.
We got a small batch. I think the most they could get for us was 8 or 9 birds. So I think half of that is gone. And so if we're lucky, we're going to get it again on Monday. And if not so, we'll have something special like beef tongue, for instance, oxtails. It depends on what is coming, but it's always fresh. It's never frozen. It's always Lithuanian. It's always organic or ecologically raised.
And what about any kind of desserts? Is there a dessert that you do that you really like?
Samuel's favorite would be the angel food parfait. So that's our sort of
Jana's new cake. Also the
meringue wheel, so to speak. I don't know.
Amazing.
I remember when we first got into the business, I was making Manhattan jelly. So that was a Manhattan cocktail that I turned into jelly and was garnishing with the cherry syrup.
Wow.
And you would have to share that because by the second or third bite, you would get sloshed.
Seriously, that was all-time favorite. People
amazing.
are still coming and asking for it.
That is amazing.
Really.
The other thing David's amazing at is making drinks. I remember he brought us to, what was it? No, it wasn't Aperol. It was Negroni, wasn't it? You made us.
For you, I made a white Negroni, and then for Leanne, I made also like a Negroni twist. Just played around with proportions for her.
But it was really good. Never had a white Negroni before. We did have a rosemary Negroni in Italy.
Ooh.
Apparently they'd made it and then put it into an oak barrel for a couple of months and left it with rosemary, and it was one of the best things I've ever, apart from what we had before, the best things we've ever tasted.
The biodynamic part of our lives was in upstate New York, Rockland County. 4 years spent living less than a kilometer away from a massive biodynamic farming community. That farm not only had its own school, wood shop, so many fields, orchards. It was a anthroposophic community based on the teachings of the Austrian esoteric philosopher Rudolf Steiner, the same man who created the Waldorf system of education, which is now a worldwide schooling phenomenon. But yeah, we were living on this farm for 4 years, surrounded by about 300 other like-minded people, people who decided were working with farms and food for a very long time, and decided, all right, we need to slow down, take a step back, and go the old way of things, which is what we're trying to essentially do now. Because being a seasonal local restaurant, what does that mean? That means if the tomatoes don't grow in Lithuania right now, we don't serve it on our plates.
They'll be here in a week. No, 2 weeks.
I cannot wait. But
Yeah.
we love tomatoes. We love eggplants. We were living in the Middle East. This is our bread and butter. But sadly, you only have it for a few months in Lithuania. So
Same with asparagus.
Yes.
A month and a half, 6 week season. That's it. Forget about them. Forget about them until next year, which is fine. Which is fine. You get used to it. There are seasons. There are stages. So we eat tomatoes about 2.5 months a year. Then we still use them as in there. We ferment them, and then we have no tomatoes. And then we eat something else. We don't buy even organic tomatoes that are not growing in Lithuania. So, you can go to an organic store or even in any large supermarket, and they would have Dutch or Israeli organic tomatoes. We don't buy them. They don't grow here.
No.
I mean, we don't need them all year around. We don't need strawberries all year around.
No, because humanity right now, it's 21st century, and everyone has gotten accustomed to the right here, right now lifestyle. I want something, it's going to be delivered to me with a drone in 2 to 3 days. No, this is
All year round.
All year round. The people can't take no for an answer sometimes, And this is a global phenomenon that has been really only an issue, I would say, for the last 50 years or so. Because now you have, not even starting with genetic modification, but just technology has progressed to such a point that people don't remember what a time was like when they say, oh, I can only have this at that time, and I have to settle for that. That's one guiding philosophy here. If you, how do I phrase it? Sometimes it's okay to take no for an answer. Let's put it that way.
I think this. I love that. I love that because when we lived in Spain, it was a similar kind of outlook in that you would have, tomatoes were pretty much all year round in Spain. But you'd have certain fruit because it was seasonal, and you couldn't get it other times of the year, and they'd come out looking really ugly, and these big salad tomatoes, they've got big knobbles on them, and in the UK they'd go in a special bin, but over here that's what you're buying. They were great.
That's what you want.
But let me ask you, talking about blueberries and berries, and you've just brought 2 big bottles of spirit that you've sat down. I want to talk about my favourite subject, which is alcohol. So, can you start off telling me a bit more about, who wants to tell me a bit more about Lithuanian beer for anyone who's not been to Lithuania?
It's a very large part of the culture here.
And that is all year round.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, it really depends on which breweries you're talking about, because you have literally countless now in Lithuania. You have small microbreweries that are opened up by DJs underneath a club, or you have massive breweries by Klaipėda and Kaunas, owned by Carlsberg Heineken Group. Right. Actually, the two largest Lithuanian beer suppliers, Švyturys and Kanapinis, are actually both owned. One's owned by Carlsberg, the other one's owned by Heineken Group. That's why we're working with the third largest Lithuanian beer supplier, Wolfas Engelman, based out of Kaunas. This brewery was founded somewhere in the middle of the 19th century, ironically by a German and a Jew, Wolfas and Engelman. And out of the big 3 of Lithuanian breweries, we would say that they're the cleanest in a sense. But actually just 2 weeks ago, we went to Panevėžys and we found a small, well, not small, but smaller than most, family-owned brewery Davra, which they took us through everything. They're using local ingredients, classic processes, and just like our menu, their assortment it's not like a textbook. It's small, simple, and quality.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about was it Engelman and
Wolfas Engelman?
Wolfas Engelman. I did have a dark beer, I think, when I was at the top. Would that be theirs?
Oh, the full range of products.
Do they?
It's interesting. It's a brewery that exists from
mid-19th century.
No. Before World War II. So it's like 1923, 26, if I'm not mistaken.
We got some live fact checking.
Had 2 parties, a German and a Jew, in Kaunas. And then everything was shut down during the Soviet rule. And after liberation in the 90s, they started to just build it up again.
Mm-hmm. So the main, for someone who's coming from further Western Europe, dark beer.
Apologies. Live fact check says that Wolfas Engelman Brewery was founded in 1853.
So, it's someone coming from Western Europe. We don't really have, particularly in the UK, we don't really have dark beers. We tend to have a bitter, which is like an ale, and then we have a lager, like a pilsner. Mm-hmm. There's lots and lots more now because there's IPAs, double IPAs, all that kind of stuff.
But you have a lot of stouts back there.
We do, but our stout is Guinness, which we have as cold as you can make it. Mm-hmm. And the dark beers I've tried around here are much sweeter, and much more like a porter.
Yes, and also, thankfully, much higher ABV.
Is that right? Oh,
yes.
That'll be why it's sweeter, wouldn't it?
Yes, no. For example, another brewery that we collaborate very frequently on for craft beers, it's Dundulis. Actually, the logo of this brewery is a pagan swastika.
Right.
So they have a lot of very good limited editions that each bottle has its own like funny story to it. The one I have right now, it's Norwegian style ale that they're brewed in. I think they're also based around Panevėžys. But they visited the sister brewery in Norway, actually took some of the hops from that brewery and made it back in Lithuania. So this one, it's a little lighter, but still 6% ABV. Mm-hmm. So definitely something to take the time with.
I did notice when we, even in the midst of winter when we arrived, that the two constants we saw in where we're living was grills, people were grilling outside, and beer. And they were saying, yep, so Saturday afternoon is basically just grilling meat and drinking beer, isn't it?
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
It's the dream. It's the dream. So I want to talk to you a little bit in closing here. I want to talk to you about your favourite restaurants. Now, it can be in Vilnius, it can be in the world, it can be both. Have you got any favourites?
Oh, it really depends on which continent you're talking about. If I can give some from Vilnius, would probably be... Well, one of the best pizzas I ever had was our friend and colleague Maurizio's Pizza in Rotuše. Actually, both of my sisters live in Austin, Texas. I visited them a year ago. They took me to a multitude of taco joints. To this day, the best one I've had is in Naujamiestis in Vilnius, Don de Taqueria. Check it out. The owner used to work as a line cook in fine dining.
Right.
And then one day, because she's an American, born and raised in Austin, Texas, moved to Lithuania because she has roots from here. So her tacos are definitely very good. For the breakfast one, she, for example, only sources free-range ecological eggs, which is very important in today's day and age. Homemade tortillas and all this good stuff. Favorite places in New York, and definitely, actually, ironically, a Lithuanian family that came to America in the 1800s. Cat's Dog Testing on Houston Street in New York City. This is one of the oldest delis in America, and one of the best sandwiches I've ever had in my life, if not the best. This is a €30 sandwich today, and I'm happy to pay double for it. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about New York, you have a gem literally every 2 steps you go over there. So I'm not even going to start on that, but you know, I grew up in restaurants like Nobu, Kotan, which was also a great Japanese place back in the day. In Israel, we were very good friends with the owner of Yakimono, which was, I think, 3 years in a row awarded a 5 Diamond Award for Best Japanese Restaurant outside of Japan. They have locations in Eilat and Tel Aviv. Jordan, for example, our 2 favorite places are right next to each other. One of them is Levant, Armenian place where they give you just a Michelin-starred shawarma that you build yourself. And then right around the corner from it, you have Rim, which is a shawarma stand that is maybe the size of this room, where you have 8 guys and 4 skewers. And there you just, I mean, 2 polar opposites in a sense. You know, one is a high-end fine dining establishment. The other one is a shawarma stand that basically only the taxi drivers know about. And I love them both the same because at the end of the day, it's quality ingredients in both places. I mean, quality, it's not just about the price tag that's associated with it. It's about the dedication. It's about the knowledge that goes into it, and ultimately how well you source the ingredients. So, you know, I'm perfectly happy paying €100 for a meal in Paris, the same I would be paying $5 for a hot dog in Times Square, as long as it's made with love and done properly.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's a great answer. Okay, so the same question to you, Sam. What is your favourite restaurant, either in Vilnius or the world, or both?
We have quite a few in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Decibel.
Oh, Decibel. Basically, it's like in the East Village off of East 9th Street. It's a basement entrance. You go through first the kitchen, then the staff area, and then only then do you get into the bar. It's basically underground sake bar. It looks like a bomb went off in a Japanese punk rock club because you got graffiti everywhere. You order a shot of sake, they serve it to you in a square, wooden square. So you have your glass, and then you have wooden square. They pour straight from the bottle, overfills from the glass and fills up the square. So you pour yourself a shot for that after. And, it's like Japanese style tapas. You have raw octopus in the wasabi sauce, lotus root, melt on the mouth unagi. I mean, if anyone is in New York City, they need to go to Decibel in the East Village. Every time I go back to the city, that's probably one of the first places I go to besides McSorley's bar.
Used to be Kotan.
Oh,
Closed
Kotan.
now.
Yeah.
Obviously. Cats. A lot, actually. It's New York City. I mean, it's the culinary mecca of the world. There are a few amazing places in Amman, Jordan.
I already spoke about them.
Yeah, so yeah, I doubt I can add anything new. We always go together.
In Tel Aviv, I was helping out at a place in the middle of market.
A hole in the wall.
Hole in the wall, literally, also the size of this room. The owner of the place is the only person who works there. She has no menu. You just walk straight into the kitchen. You see what she's cooking. You say, I'll have a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Okay, that's brilliant. So I want to thank you both so much for your time and your hospitality last Friday. I'm probably going to go and buy a beer off you now as well. So if you do want to come to the restaurant, then there's in the show notes, you'll see the link to both the website and also to probably the TripAdvisor page or something, whichever these guys want. You should definitely come. If you come to Vilnius, you should 100% come to this place because not only will you get a great welcome, you are going to get fantastic drinks and amazing food. So thank you both very, very much for being part of this. And let's go and get a beer.
Thank you.
Gladly.
Thanks.
You've been listening to the Thravelers podcast. Thanks for listening and head on over to thravelers.com for all the show notes and links mentioned in the show.